It's nice to see some faces, even though we're still in the middle of this crazy time, but it's always nice to get connected with the community, even if it's virtually. I'm just going to do a couple quick LSC updates, and then we'll hop right in with our speakers. The main LSC update, if you haven't heard, is our annual Sustainability Summit is coming up on November 12th. The theme is Climate Crossroads, and we will be exploring the intersection of climate justice and social change. We have a really amazing agenda lined up for you guys. It's not going to be one you want to miss. I'm going to go ahead and pop the link to read more about that. Check out the agenda, register for your tickets in the chat box. Check it out. If nothing else, read about it. We're really, really excited about it. And just like this, we want to try and connect with as many of you as we can during this unusual time. So I hope everyone is doing well, and we'll go ahead and jump right in with our speakers. Tonight we have Nikki Chambers and Shirley Cantrell with us from the Kentucky League of Women Voters. And they'll give you some background on the League of Women Voters and themselves. Nikki and Shirley will be explaining the importance of the date 2035 and the ramifications that it will have on the world if no changes are made to our environment. So listen up, and I'll turn it over to Shirley and Nikki.
Okay. I think I'm going to be first. Can you all hear me? Okay. Okay. First, I want to thank Julia and the Louisville Sustainability Council for inviting us to your meeting. It's always nice to have new people and meet new people and find out what you're doing and how we can all get together and help each other. So as I start, I'm going to give you some background on me, and then I'll go into our program if that's okay with you all. My name is Shirley Cantrell, and I'm chairman of the Natural Resources Committee with the League of Women Voters. I was raised in Bear, Delaware. I bet you don't know where that's at. Does anybody know where that's at? Delaware is a very small state, and Bear is even smaller. It's this like really tiny on the map, but I'll come back to that in a few minutes. It's really a farming community. So I attended Commodore McDonough Elementary School, and Commodore McDonough was a hero in the War of 1812. And I graduated from Delaware City High School, and I was valedictorian of my class. I did not go to, I couldn't take anything. You all, thank God, do not have that problem. But when I went to register, nothing was available to me that I wanted to take. I wanted to take chemistry, physics, all that sort of thing. Nothing, women didn't take that sort of thing. So I went to work instead. And then I met someone, married, and came to Kentucky. So then I did attend the University of Louisville, and I've taken many classes there and had some really good response there. I worked for Standard Oil as an accountant. I worked at the University of Louisville and the Department of Pharmacology for Dr. Lefevre, who was a world-class physicist. And I've worked for Hussung Mechanical, Barmore Electric, Bornstein Electric, and Stevens Contractors for 20 years, and that ended my career, and I've been retired for a few years. I joined the League of Women Voters in 2016 because I wanted to make a difference. I had no idea that the League was involved in so many areas like attending naturalization ceremonies, registering the new citizens to vote, restoring felons' voting rights, fair maps, getting rid of gerrymandering. We haven't got that done yet, but we're trying. High school registrations, immigration, healthcare, education, and natural resources. I was raised in Delaware, which I told you, and there was always an emphasis on treating the environment with respect, and it would return the favor to you. Some of you I see may have had the same experience that I had in school with regards to being taught about the environment. There was not a year that went by in school that we didn't take a field trip, either somewhere in Delaware or in Pennsylvania, to study contour plowing, to find out why it was important and why you couldn't let the topsoil be washed away from your fields, why planting trees was important in low-lying places in Delaware, or studying why we could not continue to spray DDT over the swamps to kill the mosquitoes in lower Delaware. And if you've ever been to any place that has mosquitoes, and they're very, very along the ocean where the backwater comes in, you know you've got to get rid of them somehow. And they used to spray. I used to be able to see the planes go over and the spray come down, and it was DDT. It's a wonder I don't have some more mental problems than I do. I lived on a small farm, and we were recyclers before we knew what recycling was. Coffee grounds was always put in the garden or around certain kinds of plants or in compost bin, which we didn't even call it a compost bin because we didn't know what a compost bin was, along with potato peels and most scraps. Anything that you were going to throw away, you put in the compost bin, along with eggshells and everything like that. So we raised chickens, ducks, geese, turkeys sometimes, and pigs. And in the spring, when my father plowed the garden, we cleaned out the waste. Fun. But anyway, we spread it on the garden along with the compost pile, which made a very, very fertile garden. I gravitated to the Natural Resource Committee when I came in because it appealed to me from that background. I never thought I wanted to do that again, but it did appeal to me. The committee, Lindrup, I don't know if any of you remember Joan, but she was in this area for a long time. Lovely lady, very knowledgeable, and she taught me a lot of things. After a period of time, she had to go and live with her son in Hawaii, and it was necessary to find a new chairman. I was asked to take the job, and although I was woefully unprepared, and still am, for this task, I took the job with the promise from my committee to help in everything that we did. They have not let me down yet. They're wonderful people. Our purpose was to see that all the water, air, and earth are clean, and that it stays that way. There came a time I think it was March of 2020, our committee could not meet or do any of the work that we had planned to do. And for a period of time, because of what? The same problem you all had, COVID. A lot of our workers are quite elderly, and it would have been very, very hard on them. And we just couldn't do it. We didn't want to take the chance. So we decided to be watchdogs. And every time we saw something that would damage our environment further, we would write a hard letter, which I called it, mail it, hard letter on letterhead, and mail it. And then we would email the same letter, and we would call our elected officials. There were many, many letters during this time, emails and calls made by our group during this time, because quite simply, our government has let us down during this time and before, and all but quit enforcing any EPA regulations and rules. We recently had our first meeting and have revised our agenda. We believe that D-Day, no turning back is the day, is fast approaching and could be as early as 2035. We are planning on broadening our influence and being more widespread to address not only our state, our country, but also the world. We started by attending the webinar recently presented and sponsored by the University of Louisville a few weeks ago, on Seizing the Day for Ohio River Restoration, which featured some of the people that helped clean up the Great Lakes. It was really, really good. And we'll show the Zoom that was shown in the middle of summer about forever chemicals. I don't know if any of you saw that or not, was concerning C8s and the role DuPont played in their creation. And if any of you want to see that, we're going to show it on October 30th, about 1 o'clock, and it's going to be our regular committee meeting. Just get in touch with me if you want to see any of that. We would be willing to join with others to help in their program. So we'll be showing this, some other Zoom presentations in the spring on climate change and fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, dust storms, and how climate change has affected those things. And we're even talking about getting into how climate change has affected health, and maybe get into some of that too. So we'll let people know when we're getting ready to do that. We believe we must all join together and tackle the environment threat to our very existence and that of our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, if we are to remain on this earth. Tonight's subject is climate change. How do we know? How do we know? Things are changing. Even from the time I came to Kentucky, the weather has been changing here. So some of the information that I'm going to present in my part came from NASA and their satellites. So let me get a drink of water here. I don't know about you all, but I've had so much trouble with the ragweed this year, and it's really affected me. So my throat gets dry. The Earth's climate has changed throughout history. Just in the last 650,000 years, there have been 7 cycles of glacial advance and retreat. And if you all want to know those, I didn't list those down here, but you can get those from Wikipedia or just type in glacial cycles and you can get them. They're quite interesting. With the abrupt end of the Ice Age about 11,700 years ago, marked the beginning of the modern climate era and of human civilization. Most of these prior 7 climate changes are attributed in Earth's orbit and change the amount of solar energy our planet receives. New research finds that previous periods of warming and cooling were regional shifts in temperature rather than global events. The current warming trend is of particular significance because most of it is extremely likely to be the result of human activity since the mid-20th century and proceeding at a rate that is unprecedented over decades. It's 95% probability, of course, that it is human activity. I kind of think that it's attributed to 2 different industrial revolution times. The second industrial revolution, which is 1870, and the third industrial revolution, which is 1969, and the invention of the automobile and the higher use of the automobile. And I'm going to stop here and interject one thing that I saw with my own eyes, and you probably saw it too. I came to Kentucky in 1961 to live, and we lived out not all there. And I worked at Standard Oil when Standard Oil was out here near U of L. There was a bulk plant out there. And so I kind of drove into town, and you could see right over Louisville, there was a cloud, a black cloud. And I kept looking at that and I thought, what the heck is that? And so as I studied it, I realized it was probably because I attributed it to the power plants that burn coal. But really, not only was it the power plants, it was the automobiles. So this went on, and we had a pretty good government at the time that was really pushing EPA and the standards and all of that. So they, about in I'm going to go the early 70s, they put pollution controlled equipment on cars. I don't know if you remember that or not, but they did. My husband didn't like it. He said, "Oh, we don't get the good mileage, and they don't run the same." But they improved on all that as time went on. And then as time went on, that cloud went away. So, we can do this. I saw that with my own eyes in a little space of time. So we can do that if we really try. But another thing that I'm going to list for you here, I'm going to go over some of the inventions that were made during the time that we had the Industrial Revolution and we started to mess up the environment. The more that we had inventions, the more productivity that we had, and the more fossil fuels that we burn. On some of them we didn't do it. We didn't burn any fossil fuels, but on some of them we did. We had the spinning jenny, which was an engine for spinning cotton or wool, and it was invented in 1764 by James Hargreaves. The Newcomb steam engine, invented by Thomas Newcomb in 1712 to pump water out of coal mines so miners could dig deeper. The next one was Watt steam engine, W-A-T-T, and it was invented by James Watt in 1763 and used for the same purpose as the other steam engine, but it used less fuel, so it went over quite good. The locomotive, that was a great invention. The first steam railway journey took place in 1804 when a Cornishman carried 10 tons of iron, 5 wagons, and 70 men, 9.75 miles in 4 hours and 5 minutes. Sounds like nothing here, but it was marvelous in those days, and the steam engine changed everything in our country. Telegraph communications, talking about changes. That was one of the biggest changes, communication. In 1837, the first electrical telegraph was demonstrated between Euston and Camden Town in London. In America, the year was 1844. Dynamite was invented by Alfred Nobel. I didn't know that till I looked that up. A Swedish chemist in 1860. If any of you are familiar with DuPont, they put together a small package of dynamite, miniature, because they already had the black powder in, because that's what they manufactured and that's where they made a lot of their money. But they put together this small packet of dynamite and sold it to farmers who were trying to clear the land. They had already cut down the trees and they had these stumps in their fields and they couldn't plow the fields. So these little packages of dynamite would blow up the stumps and they could clear their land. So DuPont made a ton of money with that little thing right there. Let's see, the next one was the photograph. Never thought much about it, but anyway, it was in 1826, Joseph Niapes, that's a French name, so I'm not sure, created the first permanent photograph from a camera image. And then this one I love because I still use the typewriter sometimes. Typewriter. In 1829, William Burt, an American inventor, patented the first typewriter he called typographer. Interesting. And then the next one would be the electric generator, and was invented by Michael Faraday in 1831 and called Faraday's disk. We still have a generator that we haven't had out of the barn forever because we haven't had very many ice storms and snowstorms and that kind of thing, and that's because we have global warming. But we used to have it when the electricity would go out, you'd bring it down and set it up, and we could have electricity during these really cold spells when you didn't have it. Let's see, and the last one, I think we're the last one, the modern factory. And I don't know anything throughout history that has probably contaminated the air more than the modern factory. This particular one that they said here was located in Derwent Valley, Derbyshire, was the first water-powered cotton spinning mill and initially employed 200 workers. It ran it ran night and day with 2 12-hour shifts, and I bet they did not get any overtime, and that's a joke. Okay, Earth orbiting satellites and other technological advances have enabled scientists to see the big picture, collecting many different types of information about our planet and its climate on a global scale. The body of data collected over many years reveals the signals of a changing climate. So you can look at the good these inventions brought to humanity and the harm they did to the earth. The heat-trapping nature of carbon dioxide and other gases was demonstrated in the mid-19th century. Their ability to affect the transfer of infrared energy throughout the atmosphere is the scientific basis of many instruments flown by NASA. There is no question that increased levels of greenhouse gases causes the Earth to warm in response. And just a quick going down, there's two types of things that causes climate change. One of them is human activity, of course, which we've talked about. The other one is natural causes. Can't do anything about natural causes, but we can do something about human activity. And a few of those things are burning fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas, cutting down the rainforest or letting it burn down, increased farming of livestock, fertilizer containing nitrogen, fluorinated gases. Now the natural causes, as I said, we really can't do much about them. Volcanic eruptions, ocean currents, Earth's orbital changes, solar variations, and internal variability. Ice cores drawn from Greenland, Antarctica, and tropical mountain glaciers show that the Earth's climate responds to changes in greenhouse gas levels. Ancient evidence can also be found in tree rings, ocean sediments, coral reefs, and layers of sedimentary rocks. This ancient or paleoclimate evidence reveals that current warming is occurring roughly 10 times faster than the average rate of ice age recovery warming. Now, I don't know where Nikki went, but Nikki's supposed to finish the second half of this. Nikki?
I'm here.
Okay.
Just a second. I'll see my screen.
We don't see your screen, Nikki.
Okay, let's see what happened. For some reason, I lost my screen. Bear with me. May just end up having to read it.
Now, Nikki, we have to bear with you.
We're all still getting used to this virtual life.
Yeah, I had
Oh,
it.
I know it. Yeah. We didn't even know I didn't even know what this was until we had COVID.
I know, it's so new.
Mhm.
Nikki, do you see the share screen at the bottom of your screen?
I do see it, but once I go to it, it has lost my file.
So in order for you to pull it up, it has to be up on your desktop, not minimized. So that might be the issue.
It was up. Just a second.
Oh no, 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 no.
Maybe,
Okay, let's see if this works.
okay.
Do you see it now?
It's starting. Yep, we see it. Nice job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is the significance of the year 2035? There's much discussion on where they're going. You ask. The answers could, oh, sorry, guys,
Did you lose it again? It's still
because I'm seeing something I don't need to see. Okay, there you go. Sorry. The answers could be very different. There is a tremendous amount of scientific data proving that global warming is real and that we need to take steps now to lessen the impact on future generations. Scientists around the globe have models showing that if there is not significant action taken by the year 2035 to fight climate change, humanity could cross a point of no return, after which limiting global warming below 2 degrees Celsius in the year 2100 will be unlikely. The research also shows the deadline to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius is already passed. So what does that mean? Well, we're already seeing the effects of that global warming. The number of record high temperature events in the United States has been increasing, while the number of record low temperatures has been decreasing since 1950. The U.S. has already witnessed an increasing number of intense rainfall events. Hurricanes have become stronger worldwide during the past 4 decades, and analysis of observational data shows supporting what theory and computer models have long suggested. Climate change is making these storms more intense and destructive. The planet's average surface temperature has risen about 1.14 degrees Celsius since the late 19th century, a change driven largely by increased carbon dioxide and other human-made emissions into the atmosphere. Most of the warming occurred in the past 40 years, with the 6 warmest years on record taking place in 2014. Not only was on record, but 8 of the 12 months were the warmest on record for their respective months, excluding June. These temperature records and increases represent an average over the entire surface of the planet. In the past, a 1 to 2 degree drop was all it took to plunge the Earth into the Little Ice Age, a time period extending from the early 14th century to the 19th century. A 5-degree drop was enough to bury a large part of North America under a massive ice 20,000 years ago. The ocean has absorbed much of this increased heat, with the top 100 meters of ocean showing warming of more than 0.06 degrees Fahrenheit since 1969. Earth stores 90% of the extra energy in the ocean. If warming reaches 2 degrees Celsius, more than 70% of Earth's coastlines will see sea level rise greater than 0.2 meters, resulting in increased coastal flooding, beach erosion, salinization of water supplies, and other impacts on human and ecological systems. Shrinking ice sheets and glacial retreat. The Greenland and Antarctic ice sheets have decreased in mass. Data from NASA's Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment show Greenland lost an average of 279 billion tons of ice per year between 1993 and 2019, while Antarctica lost about 148 billion tons of ice per year during the same period. Glaciers are retreating almost everywhere around the world, including in the Alps, the Himalayas, the Andes, Rockies, Alaska, and Africa. So in what other ways does this affect us? Climate change can affect everyday life for everyone. The increased rainfall over time causing flooding that may increase insurance claims and more expensive home insurance. Outdoor work could become unbearable with the increased temperature during the summer months. Of course, that would cause higher utility bills trying to cool off everything. Lakes drying up, putting drinking water at risk. 1/3 of the world's major lakes and rivers are drying up, affecting groundwater wells for 3 billion people, according to the World Preservation Foundation. So what can humans do to act on climate change, and what is the Paris Accord that's been in the news lately? Limiting fossil fuels such as oil, carbon, and natural gas, and replacing them with renewable and cleaner sources of energy. Finding ways to cut CO2 emissions. CO2 emissions need to be cut by almost half by the end of the next decade. changing how industries are run or subsidized. And then we can talk about the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement is an agreement within the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, dealing with greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation, adaptation, and finance, signed in 2016. It set out to improve upon the Kyoto Protocol, an earlier international treaty designed to curb the release of greenhouse gases. Each country under the agreement must on the contribution that it undertakes to mitigate global warming. Notably, in November 2019, President Trump formally withdrew the United States from the Paris Agreement. This withdrawal will not officially take effect until the day after the 2017. Sadly, none of the major industrialized nations were implementing the policies they had envisioned and had not met their pledged emission reduction targets. I'll stop there so that way we can have a little discussion about what all's going on with climate change.
I'll ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. What do you guys think is the most important things we must do right away to stop this? If we can do that, if we can stop it, what do we need to do right away?
Vote in a new administration.
Oh, yes, amen. But, okay.
Now you know my political leaning.
Wow.
I think that's
Okay.
important.
Yeah. Do you have anybody you want to put in that place to carry that out? No, I have somebody. I have a couple of people I'd put in charge of all of that. But there is people out there that could do this. And many of them that could do this. But what are some actions, though? Yes, what are some actions we should take with people? What should we do? What should we be doing? It's going to take
less meat.
I'm sorry?
Eat less meat.
That's
Okay.
one of them.
Well, that's one of them. I didn't have that one down, but that is a good one because that keeps the cows and the sheep down. And it was really odd that I did not notice that they said chickens and stuff. They said cows and sheep. So I don't know if the chickens got into that or not. Eat less meat. Okay, what about the recycling? Do we recycle right now? Are we doing the recycling thing right? I say no.
I say no.
I say no. I say it has to be a complete effort and everybody has to be made to do it.
And let's do compost too. Compost
There you go.
and recycle.
Compost. Yes, definitely. I'm writing this down because I want all the ideas I can get. What about planting trees? You think that's going to help any?
Yes, and stop cutting them down.
Yes.
And stop cutting them down and and talk to Brazil about the rainforest and what else? We can't let that go because it's what cools the planet and filters the CO2s. One important thing I think that we have to do too, and I don't know what you guys think, is what about electric cars? Do we have to go to electric cars eventually?
Yes.
Yeah, we do, don't we? We just absolutely have to. A lot of changes have to take place, don't they?
No fracking.
No what?
Fracking.
Fracking. Well, you know, I heard, and I agree with you, no fracking. I heard Biden answer that the other night, and he said we have to have a bridge. So fracking might be the answer for a bridge.
He said that because he wants the Pennsylvania vote.
Oh, okay. That could be. You got that right. But can you just go, I'm just throwing a question out there. Can you go from gasoline cars to electric cars right like that? Can you do that?
Yes.
Okay. I wish we could. I'm not sure we could.
Auto manufacturing companies have to want to do that instead of continuously increasing their profits. And it's on us as consumers to demand that type of action.
Well, I know that
Elect people that are going to enforce regulations at that highest level.
We also need to elect people who aren't giving incentives
Exactly.
financially to organizations that are hurting the environment.
Amen, sister.
But if buying a car is not accessible to everyone, there are other options such as public transportation, rideshare programs.
Yes. And with this has all been discussed, I can remember when this was being discussed back in the 70s, public transportation. And I've noticed that here in Kentucky, around Louisville, there are buses that are now, I don't know if they're electric or not, but they're not gasoline. So that is an improvement. But we can't do things just easy now. We have to get right in there and do it because we don't have time anymore. I don't think. What do you think? Is Nikki there?
I am.
Yeah. What do you think, Nikki?
I think it's going to be a collective effort with the pushback from bigger industries, and it's going to come down to a money thing. It's how much do you really want to make a change toward the environment? I mean, we could start it on a smaller scale and each person do their part, but if the bigger industries don't take part, I mean, then what good are we doing?
Well, that's, in my opinion, we have to make them take part, and you have to have an administration that will go along with you.
Exactly.
And quit cutting EPA back.
Yes. And we've seen that even with COVID, the regulations that are being, the restrictions that are being lessened just because they have an excuse now. You can't do this because of COVID. And then they'll ease their way into not putting those restrictions back in place.
That's correct. That has happened. And of course COVID is still here, so we don't know if they put it back in place, but I suspect they're not going to. So, but EPA, you don't put, how should I say, you don't put the lion in charge of the hen house or the wolf or you just don't do that, right, guys? You can't do that. So we need some changes, definitely.
And I think it starts from the top. It starts with administration. And if that person doesn't believe in it, then I don't know where you go.
That's true. We have to also think about, and there's a lot of it to think about, but an alternative energy. If you go up to somewhere around Purdue, they have all of those, I'll call them windmills. I'm sure they're not windmills, but they're huge and they produce a lot of energy for that part of the world. That's a simple way to do, because they have the wind up there, they can do it. We have water here that can safely do that. And then we have the sun. Batteries are much better than they used to be, and we can do that. So I always go back and say, if we can put a man on the moon in 10 years, we can do anything we want.
Jane, I saw your question in the chat box. What role does the LSC play in promoting sustainability in Metro Louisville? Does LSC have any influence with the mayor and Metro Council? We work alongside Metro Council. We are separate entities, but we do work alongside each other. We have many Metro Council members on our board with us, and they play a role in our decision-making and our programming. But LSC's main role in promoting sustainability in Metro Louisville is connecting and convening. So events like this to connect the community. We also do a quarterly green convene to promote more sustainability education and action steps. And our newest launch program is, excuse me, the Do Something Green campaign. And this provides free, accessible resources to our community. Anything from energy to transportation to water. I just popped that link in the chat box if anybody needs more ideas on how they can go green in their individual lives, with their household, or in their business. As Shirley and Nikki have talked about, there are endless ways and so many things that we can do to help promote and save our environment. We also, and I just started a new program with Metro. It's a solar cohort program. I know Julie Donna is on. She might be able to speak to that a little bit more. It's a new program, but we're working to bring solar into more low-income communities in the Louisville metro area. So just trying just trying to connect the community and spread awareness and give everyone as many tools and resources they can to get educated and make a change. So that's LSC's role, a little bit of LSC's role in the sustainability work in our Louisville community.
I started a new, a new program, so I'm new, a part of our committee, and it's a small part, but I pick something every month that we can do. And the last month is those little Keurig cups, how we take those apart and how we save those, how you can, and I was going back to my mother's days where she kept the coffee and did certain things with that, but you can save that cup and it is recyclable. And you cut that top off, it shows you how to do that. So I did a demonstration on that. And this time, I think it's going, this month, I'm not going to have one this month because we're going to have that Zoom thing on C8s. But the next time it's going to be on straws, and it's going to be on silicone straws where we're not using that plastic that has to be, of course we had paper straws and they worked very nicely and they would disintegrate. So, but something like that, just a little thing you can do. And there's thousands of little things we can do that makes a difference.
Absolutely. I saw that Tracy in the chat box mentioned that she's working to find a nonprofit to volunteer with to make a bigger difference outside of her own individual life. Is there any volunteer opportunities with the League of Women Voters?
Well, I'll have to find out. There's lots of volunteer things there right now, but as long as we have COVID, there's not much we can do except email, writing, and talking on the phone because, like I said, most of my people are older and we're not going to go out there and actually get in the creek and pick up stuff and actually do that right now because they're not really going to take that chance.
Mm-hmm. Voting. Everyone can vote. That is
yes, indeed.
That we can all be taking right now. Indeed. That can make a huge difference. So everyone get out there and vote if you have not already.
I put that on all my correspondence. Vote. It's not only your right, it's not only your privilege, it's your duty.
Absolutely.
To do so. And we've been, I saw our president, Margie Sharasika was on, what's her name in the morning? I normally don't watch it. Oh, golly. At 9 o'clock in the morning. She was on that program this morning. One Day Alive or something like that. It was on this morning. She was on that program talking about voting. So, sorry, I can't remember because I usually don't watch television that in that time in the morning, but I was accidentally had it on and there she was. So we're really trying to get people out. We don't tell them how to vote, and that's you know, that's the right that we don't do that. We don't tell them how to vote, but we tell them to vote and check everything out and do your due diligence and you know, check people out and see if they agree with your values. It's all you can do.
Absolutely. Do we have any other questions for Nikki or Shirley? I know we have a little chat conversation going right now. Greg shared something that I had no idea about. He says paper straws are no better than plastic, it turns out. They usually have plastic mixed in. We need to be reducing and reusing.
Oh, I'm not using those. I got silicone in. Tell me if they're bad. I checked it and said no, but oh, please tell me they're not bad.
It's so hard to know.
That would be bad.
The same goes with paper cups and plates.
Yes, I know.
What a shame.
And the thing now is there's only certain kinds of plastic that can be recycled. And what I think we have to do it all. We have to figure out how to recycle it all.
Absolutely.
Or else make people make just the certain kinds.
You know what I just heard the other day was when you go to recycle your milk jug, if you don't take the ring off, they don't recycle it.
I mean, the
had no
little
idea.
ring that you take. Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
I know. It's crazy.
I didn't know that. We need to know these things. I'm going to put that on my list to tell my people.
Reducing and reusing is always the best route to take. Okay, any more questions?
Very good.
This isn't a question, but it is a recommendation
What happened?
for Shirley and Nikki's group. Recycling does a really good overview of what is and is not recyclable in the Louisville metro area. So if you're looking for speakers for your committee or your West Rock Recycling, it's one of the biggest recycling companies, West Rock.
Okay.
And I sat in on a Zoom presentation during COVID, and they did a really comprehensive overview of specific information about our region, which I found really helpful.
Good. I live in Oldham County, and I just, I know that our recycling place, sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's open, sometimes it's not. And that's not what I'm talking about. We've got to have something better than that. We've got to have a committed recycling place for the whole United States as well as the world. It's not going to help just to do our little area right here. It's got to be the whole world, really, when we come right down to it, if we're going to get the results that we want before 2035 or 2050, whichever it turns out to be.
Absolutely. And Shirley and Nikki, if you like to get connected with West Rock in the future, we have a board member on the LSC board that is from West Rock, so I'd be more than happy to make an introduction for you guys.
Love for you to do that. I would love to do that. So I'll put your name down to get in touch with this person.
That sounds great.
Yeah, that would be good. We have a gentleman on our committee that is very knowledgeable in that area too. He was a professor at one time, so he's supposed to be preparing something for me to say which kinds of things and how they're marked and all of that. Is that what you were talking about? Is it Nicole? How they're marked and how you can tell what is what?
Part of it is that, and she also she shows a whole presentation about how different materials get sorted and how they get selected and how they get tossed out of being able to be recycled. It's just an interesting inside look at their entire industry and the process.
I would love to do that when we get back to having in-house meetings.
Behind it.
I would love that to have that as an in-house thing. I think that would be wonderful. It's definitely one of the things that America needs to get started with. I mean, really do, not just piecemeal. It has to be done from the top down, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it right. I mean, I'm going to say, I remember picking up bottles. Of course, all the bottles were glass, and you could take them to a grocery and they give you a couple of cents back. I don't know if anybody else remembers anything like that. That was before plastic, or before plastic was widely used. And then when you bought, say, a carton of something, you paid a little extra as a deposit on the bottles that you bring them back, and they would use them over again. It was a great idea. You know, worked great. So something like that could be instituted again, I think. So, but we'd have to have somebody to lead it, and somebody to lead it very strongly.
Okay, everyone, last call for questions. This has been a really cool presentation. Thank you, Shirley and Nikki, both for being here.
It was wonderful being with you all.
We appreciate the work you're doing in our community, that is for sure. Well, just to wrap up then, again, for those of you that may have not been on earlier when we got started, LSC's Sustainability Summit is happening on November 12th from 12 to 4 p.m. It's a really awesome lineup. You can see it on our site. I will pop the link in there one more time. We will also be announcing our silent auction soon, so that's something you'll want to be stay tuned for. And we are pairing up with Ramsey's on the World Cafe for a to-go lunch that you can enjoy during the summit. Nicole said she just registered. That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're hoping to see everyone there. And of course, every third Wednesday of every month, we have green drinks with different speakers speaking on sustainable initiatives and programs in the community. You can follow us on Facebook or sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date with all things green in the community. So if there's, without any other questions, we'll wrap up for the night. We're just about at 7 o'clock. Thank you for everyone for being here. It was great to see faces again. I can't wait until we can see everyone in person, hopefully one day soon. So stay safe and healthy, and reach out with any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank
It's been very enjoyable.
Thanks for being here.